Live NFL trivia every Tuesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge and have a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. Deion Sanders is not just one of the greatest cornerbacks of all time, but he's one of the greatest football players of all time. I'd be here all day if I listed all the accolades that Primetime received in his illustrious career. 8 Pro Bowls, 6 first-team All-Pros, the Defensive Player of the Year in 1994, and of course the coveted gold jacket as a Hall of Famer in 2011, where he is forever enshrined in canon. Along with all of those individual accolades, Deion has the most important team accolades under his belt as well. He not only made 2 Super Bowls, but he won both of them, winning Super Bowl 29 with the San Francisco 49ers, and then winning Super Bowl 30 the following year with the Dallas Cowboys. But what you might not know is just how close Deion came to making it to a 3rd Super Bowl, and how close he came to once again playing in the big game. Because in 2002, he was moments away from joining the Oakland Raiders. And this is the crazy story of the time that Deion Sanders was moments away from playing for the Silver and Black. Before I talk about the incident in question, we need some context as to how we got to this point. Our story begins in 2000, when Deion became a free agent. In 1999, Deion was still a really good player, showing no signs of slowing down despite being in his mid-30s. He was named a second-team All-Pro and a Pro Bowler. However, the Cowboys were in a salary cap hole. If they didn't cut Sanders, then he would have received $23.5 million guaranteed over the 2000 and 2001 seasons. Especially since Deion was coming off of an off-season surgery for his knee, it made sense to let the star cornerback go. Jerry Jones had nothing but praise for Deion, and said that he still wanted to re-sign him on a restructured deal, but that this was a move that had to be made. With that, the free agency sweepstakes began, and Washington was the clear-cut favorite. Washington was going on a spending spree that offseason in free agency, with owner Dan Snyder spending $47 million on signing bonuses that year and picking up players such as Mark Carrier, Jeff George, and Bruce Smith. Snyder was willing to do whatever it took to get Deion in the nation's capital, and Deion, seeing that Washington was a legitimate Super Bowl contender, was interested. Snyder signed the star corner to a 7-year deal worth $56 million. With the move, Washington entered the 2000 season with the second best odds of winning the Super Bowl, only behind the reigning champion St. Louis Rams. They were supposed to be that good. However, the 2000 season was, and this is putting it mildly, a disaster. After starting 6-2, Washington dropped 6 of their final 8 games to finish at 500 and missed the postseason. Norv Turner was fired with 3 games to go. There was tension between the team and owner Dan Snyder, and I talked a bit about this in a previous video of mine, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. And most importantly for our story, Deion, for really the first time in his career, was struggling. He didn't score any touchdowns, no publication names into a first or second team. It was clear that something was up. Washington was hoping that things would turn around for Deion in 2001, and that his second season would be better. The only problem? There was no second season. After just 1 year, Deion was fed up with Washington. The team hired Marty Schottenheimer, an old school guy, and Deion wanted no part of him whatsoever. Now, even though Schottenheimer never had anything negative to say about him, and even though Schottenheimer made it adamant that he wanted Deion on the team, Deion didn't trust him at all. During that offseason, Deion said, "I don't trust him as far as I could throw him," and almost begged Washington to release him, saying that he knew that Washington would have to release him at some point due to salary cap issues, and that when the inevitable happened, that he'd jump up in the air and click his heels twice. The only problem? Washington didn't release Deion. They kept him, and they found a way to stay under the cap while keeping Deion under contract. By this point, Deion was losing some leverage. However, he had an out through his baseball career. Part of the contract he signed took his baseball career into account, and it was simple. If Deion was still playing in the majors, he could miss practices and games and whatnot. If he was still playing for the Cincinnati Reds, he never had to show up for training camp. After spending 3 years out of the majors, Deion was attempting a comeback. The good news for Deion was that things were looking great at the start. In his return, not only did the Reds win 7-6, but Deion had an unbelievable game, going 3 for 3 with a home run and 3 RBI. Remember, Deion was no slouch at baseball. He played in the World Series, he led the entire league in 1992 in triples, and had a season where he hit above 300. This comeback season of his was looking incredibly promising. The bad news? Yeah, quickly went downhill after that. A month and a half later, he was hitting just 174, and had some issues fielding. When Ken Griffey Jr. became healthy again after a torn hamstring, Deion became a waste of space, and got released. He signed with the Toronto Blue Jays farm system, but by that July 29th deadline, was not on a major league roster, nor was he particularly close to getting called up to one. With that, Deion seemed like he was out of options. He thought he would be able to get Washington to cut him, or would be able to miss as much time as possible and skip training camp through his major league deal, but neither of those options came to fruition. Deion was fed up at this point, and decided to choose a third option to avoid playing for Schottenheimer in Washington. That option was simple. He decided to retire. When Schottenheimer spoke to Deion's agent, Eugene Parker, the message was simple. Deion did not want to play football anymore. As Deion said, I've got to really get my head together and figure out what I'm going to do and what I want to accomplish. Deion gave back roughly $2.5 million of his $8 million signing bonus, and with that, his disastrous tenure in Washington ended after just one season. Deion took a job working for the NFL Today on CBS, and it seemed like his playing days were truly done. Or so we thought, because once the end of the 2002 season rolled around, he was itching to get back on the field, and the team he had his eyes set on were none other than the Oakland Raiders. Oakland was looking like the best team in football. Through 14 weeks, the Raiders were sitting atop the AFC at 9-4. They had the third best point differential in the entire league. They had won 5 straight games. They had scored the third most points in all of football, and they had the likely MVP frontrunner and quarterback Rich Gannon, who had a career resurgence in his mid-30s, and by this point in 2002, at the age of 37, was unexpectedly having the best year of his career. Deion was intrigued by the Raiders, and once the Raiders officially clinched the AFC West Division title, that interest became a full-on desire to leave retirement and join the Silver and Black. And Deion was very open about his desire to join the team. He said, here's a team in the playoffs with a real chance to go to the Super Bowl, and an owner who always wants to win. I always felt like I might look good in that black and silver. While the Raiders didn't confirm that they were interested in Deion, when asked about the possibility, head coach Bill Callahan didn't exactly deny it either. He said, I don't want to take away or detract from the team. It was a non-answer, especially since Charles Woodson was hurt during the season, undergoing surgery for a broken leg, and especially since Al Davis had previously expressed interest in Deion back in 1995, when they reportedly offered more money than the Cowboys did to try and get him. This seemed like a done deal. The only problem? There were 2 major hurdles in the way of making this a reality. Number 1, because he was still on Washington's reserve retired list, Washington would have to release him. There was nothing that Deion could do as long as Washington held his rights. Number 2, if Washington did release him, he would have to clear waivers. If he didn't clear waivers, then not only would Oakland not get him, but he wouldn't even be eligible to play for the rest of the season. The reason for this makes sense, as if the waiver system and deadline to play in the league wasn't there, then you see lots of players retiring to try and get released by their team and play postseason football. Fortunately for Deion, the first part of the move was done. Dan Snyder said he wouldn't stand in the way of Deion playing for the Raiders if he wanted to. Washington released Deion, putting the plan in motion. Part 1 done. Now comes Part 2. All he had to do was clear waivers. And as it turns out, 1 year later, Schottenheimer was the one who got the last laugh. In 2002, the San Diego Chargers hired Marty Schottenheimer to become their new head coach. The Chargers were a laughingstock for a long period of time before, as they hadn't had a winning record since 1995, and everything seemed to go south immediately after Bobby Ross was no longer the head coach. However, in 2002, they were shockingly good, to the point where after 7 weeks, they were 6-1 and looked like one of the top teams in all of football. While they faltered hard down the stretch, by the time Deion was on waivers, the Chargers were still in contention for a playoff spot at 8-7. If the Chargers made the playoffs, and if they were to make a run at Super Bowl XXXVII to play the game in their home venue, then they likely would have had to, at some point, play the Oakland Raiders. And the Chargers made it clear, we want no part of going up against Deion Sanders in the postseason. By claiming Deion off of waivers, you guarantee that he can't beat you in an opposing uniform. Plus, since he's still retired, he doesn't count against the cap. There's no risk whatsoever to signing him and blocking him from joining your rival. As Schottenheimer said, we're not going to concede anything to what could be a potential playoff opponent. We're going to continue to put ourselves in the best possible position to be successful. And the Chargers were not alone in this mindset. 4 other teams put in claims for Deion. Those teams were Tennessee, Indianapolis, Kansas City, and Pittsburgh. All 4 of those teams were not only in the AFC, but were teams that were still mathematically alive for the postseason. Why Deion and everyone were so outspoken about this, I'm not sure, since it seemed like a very obvious strategy by the other AFC teams. But regardless, Deion's dreams of playing for the Raiders were gone. While Deion would come back to the NFL 2 years later in 2004, it would be as a member of the Baltimore Ravens. He had no desire to play for the Chargers or coach Schottenheimer. But it's crazy just how close we got to seeing Deion Sanders in a Raider uniform. Imagine a secondary with Rod Woodson, Charles Woodson, and Deion Sanders. From a name recognition and talent standpoint, it'd be the best secondary in the history of the NFL. And if Deion hadn't made his intentions so blatantly known, and if the Raiders had done a better job of keeping this under wraps, then maybe this dream secondary could have become a reality. Be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and be sure to check out Twitch every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JRGator9, and subscribe to 60-Second NFL History on YouTube. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.